Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. First of all, if you are new here, if this is the first video from me that you are watching, thank you. I post new book reviews almost every single day, so if you're looking for a little bit of reading inspiration this summer, then maybe feel free to stick around. Now let's get into today's video, and that is a book review of the next volume in a series that I am rereading. No matter how I look at it, it's you guys' fault I'm not popular, by Nico Tanigawa. I am on volume 7, and this is a reread. I got partially through the series in around 2001, and now I am rereading this series again. I switched library districts in the middle, which is why I had to stop reading the series and restart when I joined a new library district because of book reasons. So, volume 7. So a brief overview, even though this is a review of volume 7, and I'm going to assume you have a little bit of familiarity with the story, I'm also going to assume that you don't care if I spoil things that happen through volumes 1 through 6. We have been following a girl, our main protagonist, named Tomoko. Tomoko is a high school girl. She's now in her second year of high school, and she thought high school was going to be a little bit different than it has been going for her. When she joined high school, when she started high school, it's not really something you join, it's something you have to go to. She thought that she was going to nail it. She was going to kill it. She's played a ton of video games where she's a high school girl. She's going to get the boys. She's going to be hot. She's going to have a ton of friends, and she's going to kill it. Reality has hit like a freight train, and life is a little different. Tomoko finds herself on the outside. She finds herself with a lot of social isolation, loneliness, not a lot of friends, a lot of awkwardness. Some of this is the normal things that every teen goes through, whether or not they have a solid friend group through high school or not. And some of this is just different challenges that some people face when they maybe find themselves outside of the social norms or outside of a social group for whatever reason, whether they moved or, in this case, her friend from middle school moved away. So Tomoko finds herself on the outside, and she has been struggling to kind of grow into her self-confidence and find a friend group and just be a young girl trying to enjoy life. But it's a little bit challenging. We have been following her, and she is definitely an embarrassing girl. This is not the stereotypical anime protagonist who has everything pulled together, who's super cute, it's kind of funny and laughable. At times the series is quite painful to watch because in one instance, sometimes I feel like we're watching ourselves. You remember the embarrassing things that you did or you said. That's inevitable when you're looking back at this time in your life. But also she's a young girl trying to find herself, and so she is inevitably going to make mistakes, and oh boy does she make mistakes. We're on volume 7 though, and Tomoko is in summer vacation, which is perfect timing because it is starting to get hot where I live, and so it felt like the right vibe for the day to read a book that was about summer vacation. I'm an adult, I have to go to my day job throughout all summer, but I can pretend like I'm on summer vacation. So I had some ice cream and I read volume 7. Tomoko's summer vacation in this volume mostly consists of her spending time with her cousin Ki-chan, which is a character that we've met in a previous series, and also spending time with friends. She has met up with 2 friends, a girl that she actually has gotten to know at school through the last couple volumes, and her friend from middle school who wound up going to a different high school. So they have been separated, but they're getting back together, and they're doing typical girl summer vacation things. They're going to the beach. They went to this it was like a Comic-Con, but not quite. They also were forced to go to, just Tomoko was forced to go to this baseball game, and they went swimsuit shopping together. They're just doing the typical high school things. And I feel like volume 7 was very interesting because we're starting to see 2 things. First of all, we're getting an outsider perspective in some of the other characters. Up to this point, or not quite up to this point, but a lot of the series up to this point has been focused on Tomoko, her thoughts, her opinions, what's going on in her head, and something that we can all take away from this series, or that anyone who reads this series recognizes, is even though Tomoko is quite embarrassing as a person and she makes a lot of mistakes and she's very socially isolated, everyone who goes through their teenage years has insecurities and worries about things, etc. And Tomoko, locked in her own head, thinks that everyone else has it together, everyone else is pretty, everyone else has it going for them, everyone else has a perfect life, and it's her. She's the weird one. She masks it with this self-confidence and this internal monologue of everyone else sucks and I'm the only one who's normal. but you can kind of tell, you can see through the cracks, especially as an adult, you can see through this facade that she's putting up. But in volume 7, we get to see some of the internal monologue of one of Tomoko's friends, her middle school friend who moved away, or not moved away, but went to a different high school. Tomoko perceives the middle school friend as being so much better than her in terms of, well, she has like a boyfriend, she has friends, she's popular, she's pretty, she's social. And of course, Tomoko internally is like tearing her down somewhat about this, but secretly Tomoko wants to be her more or less. And we see an internal monologue after they go out as a group to buy swimsuits, and the other two girls are super embarrassed about like trying on swimsuits or doing this whole thing together. So they wind up leaving without trying anything on. And we see the internal perspective of Tomoko's middle school friend thinking like, oh, did they not like it? Am I suggesting a really bad idea? And I feel like it's a brief glimpse or an acknowledgement that everyone has these insecurities. It's not just Tomoko. Tomoko is our main character, so we're getting a lot of focus on her, but all her friends, everyone in her class, everyone who was a teenager at one time had these insecurities. So this is a very normal part of life, and it's very normal to be in your own head at that time of life, overthinking everything because you desperately want to fit in and you really want to find your friend group. It's a very, I feel like, important, or it's a time in life where fitting in feels very, very important. So everyone has these insecurities, and the series really does showcase that in this volume, I think, the insecurities that plague everyone. Additionally, and this is something that I really like this series for, again, this is a reread for me, we're seeing the slow and incremental growth. Tomoko, over this series, I made it through somewhere in the mid-teens when I wound up stopping reading it the first time. Tomoko does grow. She does improve as a person. She gets used to putting herself out there. She becomes more social. She starts to learn from her mistakes. She stops viewing everyone around her as stupid and worthless and less than her, and even though that is a facade, she also, I feel like, is starting to accept herself. But that growth doesn't happen in one magical moment, in one magical volume where everything comes together and then the boy comes in and then everything's perfect. Well, I guess that could happen. I don't know how the series ends. Maybe that is how the series ends. But from what I read the first time, the growth is much more incremental, which feels a lot more natural. Usually when you're growing in life, in any way, physically, emotionally, as a person, the growth is very incremental, and you don't really see progress until you look back to where maybe you were 5 years ago and you realize, oh wow, I was really immature when I made that decision, or wow, look how much I've grown. So, and like even physically, like you don't wake up one day and have grown to your normal adult height. It's incrementally added on from like being a baby to being an adult. The growth, I feel like, has been incrementally adding on, and maybe even as a reader, it's been kind of hard for us to see, but in having the summer vacation, we can compare it to the previous summer vacation, and even Tomoko has these thoughts in her head about how she had spent her previous summer vacation, and we can see that she's put herself out there. She's developing a small friend group. She has a little bit more confidence in herself. She really is growing as a person compared to where she was during her first summer vacation, and this is just a time to showcase that incremental growth that she has gone through. I like this series. I definitely think it's a series that I can find people disliking because I think that the incremental slow growth from the beginning of the series can be really hard to read through, especially through some of Tomoko's darker moments where she has no self-confidence and the crushing weight of loneliness is really just coming down on her. I feel like that can be really hard to read and not really an enjoyable read, especially if you're looking for a lighter or funnier manga. I find this series kind of funny, but I also recognize that it's a little bit darker. And while I do promise there's growth and things get happier and Tomoko puts herself out there and there is growth throughout the series, I do understand why some people might not like it. I'm enjoying it, and I'm going to read volume 8. I'm excited to see where volume 8 goes. If you have any suggestions, comments, manga I should be reading, thoughts on volume 7, thoughts on the series thus far, I would love to hear it. Put it in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.